Hello there, and Merry Christmas! Firstly, please give that YouTube algorithm a good kickstart by giving this video a big Christmas like. Now, as I wash down the last of the Christmas roast and pud with a very acceptable glass of vino, it's nice to reflect on what has been a political rollercoaster of a year that ended with that barnstormer of an election result for Boris Johnson. However, the result may have more to do with the wholesale rejection by the nation of Jeremy Corbyn's chaotic, Marxist, racist incarnation of Labour, which ignored the 2016 referendum result, than it had to do with a wholehearted embracing of the Boris Party and its willingness to execute some or other version of Brexit. After all, I'm an advocate of a clean break Brexit, something that I worry the Boris Johnson Withdrawal Agreement treaty may not fully deliver. But I'd rather have that, something that can be built on, than to be drowned in a hard-left lake of UK self-loathing. Maybe this election result shows that the radical hard left and its ideology does not resonate with the 21st century UK working classes, who now seem to have demanded that Corbyn's metropolitan liberal left is thrown into the recycle bin of history, awaiting their permanent deletion, we hope. But we cannot afford to be complacent. For as long as the left continues to infest our education system, there will always be another radical, brainwashed generation of Jeremy Corbyn's ilk waiting in the wings ready to spout their Marxist poison. Another generation of educators ready with a near religious zealotry to fill our children's heads with thoughts of dislike for their own country and a dread for their own futures, unless, of course, they blindly follow the radical left teachings when they are told that all will be sweetness and light. Another similar generation of educators ready to teach our children to become the next anti-UK Marxist brigade to be fed into the machines of the civil service, the police force, the armed forces, the political classes, etc. We once taught children a pride in their country, a pride in their parents, and through that a pride in themselves and who they are. We taught them that they had opportunity and hope because of the sacrifices of those that went before them. And importantly, we taught them a respect of the rule of law, one nation, one legal system. But no more. It now seems that our educators are intent on doing the exact opposite. And no nation can long survive such an onslaught. But fortunately, as Britain wakes up from what seems like a bad dream of liberal left political correctness, it looks like it will be a long time until another left-wing loony finds their voice flowering into power in Parliament, because there is change in the air. You can sense it when you walk down the street. It has become almost palpable. No longer do people feel like strangers in their own land. No longer do people feel so constrained as to not tell it as they see it. No longer do we feel that we are unable to answer back when a lefty spouts their bile in our direction. No longer do we feel that we have to look down at our feet and shuffle uncomfortably whenever some PC-inspired hate-monger points at us and calls out racist when we dare to say or do anything in support of our own country. The nation is now beginning to puff out its chest and say, no more of this, we are a kind and tolerant people. We need apologise to no one anymore. And much more importantly, no longer do we have to keep on justifying our belief that the UK is better off outside the EU, because Brexit is a mere 37 days away and we will be leaving the European Union treaties at 11 p.m. on the 31st of January 2020. What we now need to do is ignore the doomsayers and press ahead with forging our newly rediscovered national identity and independence. The set of ideals that make up our United Kingdom and its people are no longer a whipping post to induce a sort of PC-based self-hatred. And as our self-awareness as a nation grows, we will come to recognise the damage that the pro-EU lobby has done to this country via the education system for one. An education system designed over decades to be the bedrock of dismantling the structure of the UK while stripping out any vestige of love for our country amongst those it taught, so that our whole nation could be fed through the EU superstate blender. Now that the pro-EU veil is lifting from society, it is beginning to release the acrid smells of anti-UK, hard-left extremism from our universities and colleges, despite existing legislation to prevent this sort of indoctrination happening. Surely it is now time to recognise this and legislate further. Outside the metropolitan centres and our halls of learning, the country is slowly growing in the confidence that comes from being a newly self-governing nation. But one thing we will have to do is rediscover ourselves as a nation, rediscover our own identity, and most importantly, understand our unique United Kingdom and look to what binds us together, not to what others would try to use to tear us apart. And remember that the United Kingdom is a sovereign country of centuries standing, but the EU is a recent but now failing political project. But the UK is made up of four main identities, that of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and all should fly their flags high and proud. But fly them as partners, not as combatants. And as we move forward, a new partnership will develop, but a partnership where we realise that the buck stops here in the UK. Now you'll hear a lot about healing the nation and other such platitudes with promises of reports and other such things. But as I see it, the best way to heal the nation is to press ahead with plans that brings prosperity and opportunity to all corners of the UK. And a government that pushes ahead with plans to do just that will win through. And it's not about freebies and entitlements, it's about opportunity and hope. And a nation full of opportunity and hope to the full extent of its borders is a nation that binds together. Opportunity and hope will bring new confidence to the Union, and those arguing for separation will find their words of ardent nationalism falling on ever more deaf ears. Scotland itself will not escape this newfound confidence as the weighty chains of a Jacob Marley-esque SNP pulls Nicola Sturgeon and co to the bottom of Loch Ness. But more than that, as we move forward and come to realise that the UK once again runs its own affairs, we will be able to voice our concerns over anything that could pose a risk to the UK and its cohesiveness. So the time is coming where we can once again freely express our reasonable views without fear that the politically correct thought police will brand us as far-right Nazis or racist just because we have a love for our country and disagree with unconstrained immigration. The Labour curtain has been pulled away, and behind that red curtain is not the Great Wizard of Oz, but just an old bitter-looking jam maker from Islington busily cloning his female replacement. And I can assure you that there are no hard left reds behind this curtain. And I'll be with you as we enter this new chapter in our nation's history, helping dissect the ongoings in British politics and keeping a careful eye on those that supposedly represent us. I'll keep my beady eye on Brexit and how it unfolds, because it is far from over. And another thing that's not over is the single-minded determination of the left and of the pro-EU lobbies who are too powerful to simply write off. The battle for Britain has moved to a new front as the possibility of a breakup of the Union looms ahead, and we must ensure our politicians do all they can to keep the different countries of Britain together and unified. That will only be achieved by those politicians managing the economy effectively, then ensuring the prosperity is distributed justly. Corbyn was right about one thing, and one thing alone, because even a stopped clock is right twice a day. The UK should work for the many and not just the few. But what Corbyn, and for that matter the Remainers, never understood is that our democracy should be dictated by the many of us and not the centralised authoritarian few with their cult leader following the narrative of some perverse anti-UK agenda masquerading as progressive equality, where equality is built on an ever-shifting morality. As we move into the 2020s, it would be nice to think that Corbynism will always remain in the last decade, preserved frozen in an eternal 2019, serving as a reminder for future generations to look back on and see that hard left state socialism would never be able to leave the hipster-ridden student unions and translate into the real world. That a Marxist system that always pits people against each other in a perpetual class war of envy and hate will never work. But there will always be those looking for power who will try and divide our long-established UK society for their own political ends. The pro-EU lobby, for instance, has tried to separate Great Britain from Northern Ireland to try and keep us locked inside their favoured political experiment. The pro-EU lobby has also tried to split the country along a generational divide, pitting young against old. And they try and portray themselves as inclusive, etc. Anyway, Brussels looks like it has recognised that the UK is now leaving the EU, as the news is that it is likely that the next phase of negotiations, post the 31st of January 2020, will be co-hosted in London and Brussels in recognition of the newly acquired status of an independent UK. But it will also signify the start of a new campaign amongst some in the UK, the campaign to rejoin the European Union. Finally, the BBC has a headline about Andrew Bailey, the newly selected Governor of the Bank of England, to replace the current Governor, Mark Carney. The headline is, "Why didn't the Bank of England appoint a woman?" And my instant answer was, firstly, it is the government that appoints a new governor on the final recommendation of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, not the bank. And also because one assumes that the person appointed does not at the moment wish to self-identify as a female. In this still for the moment PC-infested country, it seems that the first three selection criteria on any recruitment campaign must be race, gender and social background, with ability and experience as well as a dedication to the UK being far distant down that list. All I want is the person best qualified to run the bank as well as it can be run for the benefit of the UK. As far as I'm concerned, selecting someone primarily because they are not male would be a dereliction of duty by any government. Now, I did a quick Google search for the top 10 fashion models and got a few different selections. And guess what? They were all young females, apart from one young non-gender. Not one stated male amongst them. Isn't this extremely sexist? And note, the search term I used was the non-gender specific top 10 fashion models. And as Mothercare starts plans to keep selling on the high street through outlets such as Boots, despite its recent collapse, how come no one's demanded that it be renamed Parent Care? But anyone with common sense understands about fashion modelling and why Mothercare is called Mothercare. It needs no explanation. It needs no justification. So why does the choice of a man for a top job always have to be justified, especially in this PC-generated, gender-fluid age where gender is meant to mean nothing at all anymore, man or woman, and we can change it day by day? And I'll leave you with the message that whatever we do, we should all face the coming years with hope and optimism and a belief in ourselves. Delicious. Anyway, what do you think? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.